first video that we made of this Jeep JT Gladiator with an ACCUAIR system installed on it, I asked for you to post some questions that you might have regarding it. And in this video, I'll do my best to answer what I can. Some of what I'm about to cover is a rehash of things, but I think it'll be helpful to see again, and for that, I hope you'll be forgiving of it. With that said, one of the very first questions that I got was, what all comes with the kit? And the most important component that you'll get with this kit are these awesome air pistons that are designed to replace your coils both front and in the rear. Of course, to help smooth out your ride, you'll get a set of JRI custom-tuned shocks. New lower control arms, both front and rear, are also included, as well as a set of upper arms for the rear. A new adjustable front track bar, a rear track bar relocation bracket, longer rear sway bar links, extended rear brake lines, and longer sway bar links up front are included as well. Of course, this Gladiator being a sport, these links are quick disconnects. Now, to make the air pistons work, an air compressor and a 3-gallon seamless tank are mounted onto a skid plate and both get installed underneath the Jeep. As in, the air compressor is not inside the cab, as some of you had assumed. What is on the inside is this, the brains of the whole system and a means to hook up a hose provided with the kit so that you can air up your tires. And last but not least, an in-cab controller with 3 pre-programmed settings and a means to fine-tune your ride height is provided as well. Of course, you can also use your phone to do the same thing too. And because I know it's coming, this kit is 100% bolt-on and requires no cutting or welding, and therefore it can be totally reversed in the future. There is one thing that I do need to clarify from our first video, and that is the default ride height, setting number 2, is actually 4.5 inches on a Jeep Gladiator and not 3.5 inches as was previously stated. 3.5 inches is actually the default ride height for a JK Wrangler. On both kits, setting number 1 will lower the suspension by 2 inches. And this is a ride height that you can drive on at any speed. In fact, you'll even see an increase in fuel economy with it. Setting number 3 will raise your suspension to its maximum height, and that's 1 inch above the default setting. On a Gladiator like this, that means you'll be sitting at 5.5 inches of lift. Now, I do need to point out that at this height, you can only drive at speeds of 25 miles an hour or less, and if you exceed that, the suspension will automatically lower itself back down to its default setting. So, it isn't a preset, but there is one more button that I'd like to point out, and it's this one. If you press and hold this button for 3 seconds, it'll lower your entire Jeep down to the bump stops. And this makes it super easy to get in and out of an otherwise really tall Jeep and without the need for side steps. Along the lines of ride height, one of the questions that I got was in regards to ride quality and whether or not it'll be affected by how tall or short you have your suspension set to. And from what ACCUAIR tells me, the air pistons that they use, they'll offer the exact same spring rate across the spectrum with the exception of setting number 3. At that maximum ride height, your ride will feel a little bit firmer, but again, you can only drive at speeds of 25 miles an hour or less. The same is true if you lower your suspension down to the bump stops. Obviously, your ride isn't going to be that great, being that you're riding on the bump stops. But as before, as soon as you start driving at 25 miles an hour or faster, the suspension will automatically raise itself back up to its default setting. As far as what I think about the ride, how it feels, well, like I always like to say, ride quality is 100% subjective. But after racking up about 3,000 miles on the odometer, what I can tell you is that it is surprisingly nice. Really comfortable both on and off-road, but I'll get to that in another video. With that said, one of the questions that I got asked a lot was in regards to durability and how long will the air pistons last? And from what I'm told, the pistons are made in the USA and using a heavier ply than what you'd find on vehicles that have a similar system from the factory. I'm also told that they require no servicing and that ACCUAIR is so confident in their durability that they'll cover them for 100,000 miles. And if one of them were to fail before then, they will replace it free of charge. Also, for those of you who live by the ocean, or worse, in the Rust Belt, the billet on these air pistons are clear Type 3 anodized, just like the shocks, and that'll help resist corrosion. But what if a freak accident occurred and I blew an air piston anyway? What would happen? Well, for one, each piston is controlled by an individual solenoid, and so only one in question would be compromised. Essentially, it would feel like you're riding on your bump stop, just like if you were to break a coil. Now, this isn't a question that I was asked, but it is something that I felt should be addressed. As you can see, this Jeep is running aftermarket 1350 drive shafts, and while you can get by with running a factory in the rear, with this mounted lift, I would highly recommend that you upgrade at least the front. Even though the JL and JT do come with an FAD, the angle of the front drive shaft will still be steep enough that the CV boot on the output shaft will be in a constant state of pinch. And when in four-wheel drive, this will cause it to fail. As far as pinion angle and caster goes, the control arms that are provided with the kit will have them set at the default ride height, which is setting number 2. Yes, the angles on both will change at different ride heights, but on setting number 1, it won't be enough to matter. And if you're on setting number 3 or down on your bump stops, as soon as you hit 25 miles an hour or more, it'll automatically bring you back up to your default ride height. So, this isn't really an answer to a question, but more rather a response to complaints that we were getting that we never showed this Gladiator going up and down in real time. With that said, right now we're on setting number 2. This is going all the way down to the bumps. Now this is going all the way to setting number 3, the maximum height. Now this is going to setting number 1, entry level. And finally, this is setting number 2, default ride height. Clearly, there were a lot more questions asked than I was able to answer in this video. But I can assure you, they are coming in future videos, some of which will be in videos all their own. Of course, if you've got questions or things you would like to see about this Gladiator and the ACCUAIR system installed on it, please post your questions here on our YouTube channel or on wayalife.com. Oh, Ripley, what are you doing?